Something has just shaken the foundations of modern physics. It began quietly, almost anonymously, in a remote observatory where nothing unusual ever happens. But overnight, everything changed. A black hole, an object famous for swallowing light, space, and time itself, has been caught doing something no scientist has ever witnessed. Something impossible, something that threatens to rewrite the laws of the universe as if they were nothing more than loose pages scattered by a cosmic wind. The data came in at 3:14 a.m., sharp as a blade and twice as unforgiving. A supermassive black hole, one of the silent monsters lurking in the distant dark, wasn't growing like every black hole should. It wasn't stable either. The numbers suggested something terrifying. It was shrinking. Not slowly, not over billions of years, but at a rate no model had ever predicted. The universe, it seemed, had just revealed a flaw in its own operating system. And the question no one knows how to answer is, why now? At first, researchers assumed an error, a malfunction, faulty sensors, anything other than the truth. Because if a black hole can shrink on a cosmic timescale shorter than the blink of an eye, then the universe is playing by rules we have not discovered, or worse, rules we once knew but somehow forgot. The observatory's lead scientist stared at the graphs, terrified. The mass curve wasn't going up. It wasn't staying flat. It was collapsing inward, as if the black hole were evaporating from the inside out, violating everything Einstein, Hawking, and every physicist since has ever sworn was unbreakable. But the horror came with the realization that this wasn't Hawking radiation. It was too fast, too violent, too structured, almost like a signal. Almost like a message, so the team ran the numbers again, and again, and again. But the results refused to change. The black hole, once the size of millions of suns, was shrinking like a candle left in the rain. Not metaphorically, literally, the mass was dissolving, the event horizon was tightening, space around it was destabilizing. Something was taking from it, and no one knew what. And here's where the real fear begins. Because Stephen Hawking, decades ago, warned of something strange. A possibility so absurd, so outrageous, that even he wasn't fully certain how to describe it. He proposed that black holes might not be eternal prisons of gravity, but windows, gateways, bleeding energy in ways we still don't understand. But even Hawking never imagined something like this. Never imagined a black hole shrinking faster than physics allows. Never imagined that one could be drained. What could drain a black hole? What force could challenge the strongest gravitational object in the cosmos? What mechanism could reach across unimaginable distances to tamper with something so monstrously powerful that not even light can escape? These questions began consuming the scientific community like wildfire. And the deeper researchers looked into the problem, the more they realized this wasn't a random cosmic accident. It was too precise, too rhythmic. The mass loss followed a pulse, a pattern, a mathematical signature, as though something were feeding on it. Something invisible, silent, and far more advanced than human comprehension. Some scientists whispered about exotic particles, ghostly entities that slip between dimensions. Others spoke about vacuum decay, the nightmare scenario where the fabric of reality collapses into a lower energy state. If that were happening, we wouldn't have years to react. We wouldn't have months. The collapse would spread outward at the speed of light, rewriting physics itself like a cosmic eraser. But then came the observation that made everyone's blood run cold. The shrinkage wasn't random across the event horizon. It was directional, lopsided, targeted, as if something were pulling the black hole apart from one side. As if the monster of gravity was being hunted by something even more terrifying. Something stronger. And here's where the panic begins. Because black holes don't shrink directionally. They don't lose mass unevenly. They don't tilt or peel. This isn't a star shedding layers. This is a gravitational singularity, something that should be immune to tampering. But the data shows a distortion, a tear, a wound, an invisible force tunneling into a black hole as if extracting energy. If that is true, then we are watching the universe reveal a predator we never knew existed. A cosmic force powerful enough to feed on the darkest, most dangerous objects in existence. What kind of entity could do this? A field? A particle? A dimension overlapping ours? Or something else entirely? Something alive? Astronomers are terrified to suggest it publicly, but in private whispers behind closed doors, they admit the unthinkable. If something is capable of draining a black hole, then it isn't just a force of physics. It is a force of intention. Some believe we are watching a phenomenon older than the universe itself. Something that roams the cosmic void, consuming the most massive objects like fuel. something that hides between the cracks of space-time, something we were never supposed to see. Others fear the opposite, that this shrinking black hole is not a predator's meal, but a symptom of a much larger cosmic breakdown. A crack in reality, a leakage of energy, a structural failure in the universe's foundation. If that is true, then this black hole is not alone. Others could follow, and if black holes begin shrinking across the cosmos, the consequences would be devastating. Galaxies held together by their gravitational pull would unravel. Stars would drift into the void. Dark matter halos would collapse. The cosmic web itself could dissolve like dust blown from an ancient map. But the strangest part? The black hole's behavior is accelerating. Every passing hour, the rate of shrinkage increases. As if whatever is causing this is getting stronger, or closer, or hungrier. What happens when it finishes consuming this black hole? Does it move to another? Does it search for more gravitational giants? Or could it, eventually, turn toward smaller sources, like stars? Like planets? Like us? No one knows. But the universe has just revealed that black holes are not invincible. Not eternal, not safe, and if they can shrink, then the rules of creation and destruction are no longer stable. Something is rewriting the script of existence. And the scariest question is the one scientists whisper, but never speak aloud in front of cameras. Is this the first black hole shrinking, or the last one we will ever see shrinking? Because what if this is not a unique event, but a warning? The alarm spread from observatory to observatory, each one confirming the same terrifying truth. The black hole's light echo, the faint, ghost-like reflection of matter falling in, began to flicker. Not randomly, but rhythmically. Like a heartbeat, like a countdown, something was synchronizing the decay. Something was orchestrating the collapse with precision far beyond anything naturally occurring. Physicists tried to describe the phenomenon using the language of science, but the vocabulary of human physics suddenly felt inadequate. Words like mass, spin, and accretion seemed laughably small compared to what was unfolding. This wasn't just mass loss. It wasn't just Hawking radiation. It wasn't even space-time curvature behaving unusually. It was as if a deeper layer of reality, one hidden behind everything we know, had begun to move. The energy signature around the black hole shifted into a pattern eerily similar to predictions made decades ago by Stephen Hawking. He once speculated that black holes might not be the eternal monsters we imagine, but fragile, dynamic objects capable of bleeding energy. But he also warned of a possibility almost no one took seriously, that under certain conditions, black holes might vanish not over trillions of years, but abruptly, catastrophically, violently. And now those predictions were no longer hypothetical footnotes in academic papers. They were happening, right now, in real time. The event horizon, the boundary beyond which nothing escapes, began trembling. Yes, trembling, as if something inside the black hole was clawing toward freedom. The curvature of space around it throbbed like a wounded beast. The gravitational field twisted, tightening and loosening in rapid, sickening waves. Something was happening beneath space-time. At this point, the world's most powerful telescopes were aimed at the anomaly. And that's when scientists saw it, the detail that broke them. A thin, razor-sharp slit appeared along one arc of the event horizon. It wasn't an artifact, it wasn't noise, it was a tear, a real tear, a wound opening across the skin of a black hole. Nothing in the universe should be able to tear the event horizon. Nothing, not stars, not galaxies, not even another black hole. The event horizon is supposed to be perfect, smooth, absolute, final. But this one was opening like fabric stretched too far. Inside the slit, they observed something no one was prepared to see. Not darkness, not light, but a shimmering texture, like the surface of boiling metal. A region where space-time was collapsing inward upon itself. A region that looked less like physics, and more like a throat. A tunnel, a channel, something pulling the black hole into a deeper layer of reality. Suddenly the shrinking made sense. The black hole wasn't evaporating. It was being extracted, as if something beyond our universe had reached in, and begun pulling it out. And that leads to the next terrifying question. What lives outside the universe that can reach into it? Scientists tried to model the extraction using quantum gravitational simulations, but nothing fit. The data didn't behave like energy loss. It behaved like directional removal. As if something were gripping the black hole's singularity and dragging it away molecule by molecule, atom by atom, metric by metric. The physics community erupted into chaos. Some researchers theorized that the black hole had intersected with a higher dimensional membrane, a Brane world. pulling it into another universe. Others believed a cosmic-scale particle field might be draining it like a siphon. But the darkest theory suggested this wasn't a passive phenomenon, but an active one. A deliberate action, a harvest. Could a universe feed on black holes the way living organisms feed on nutrients? Could dimensions behave like predators, consuming each other in the dark? The shrinking accelerated dramatically. Something was approaching a threshold, a singular moment, a critical point where the black hole would no longer shrink, but collapse into something new. As the event horizon tightened to a fraction of its size, instruments detected a final pulse, an energy burst so precise it resembled a binary code. Not random, not chaotic, structured, intelligent, it was as if the black hole were sending a message as it died. Or, as something inside it awoke. Because right before the black hole vanished completely, telescopes picked up a final, horrifying image. The slit widened for a fraction of a second, revealing, not a void, but a glowing geometry of swirling angles. Shapes that should not exist. Angles that bent inward where there was no inside. A structure that looked less like matter, and more like architecture. An architecture built in a place where physics has no authority. And then, in one silent moment, the black hole blinked out of existence. Not exploded, not collapsed, simply disappeared, gone, as if erased. The region where it once existed now shows something even more disturbing. A growing sphere of gravitational emptiness. A bubble where spacetime is thinner, weaker, as if the black hole wasn't the only thing taken, but the structural fabric around it was sucked away too. This has never been seen before, and it has only one explanation that fits the observations. Something outside the universe is pulling pieces of it apart. If this continues, stars could destabilize. Galaxies could unravel. The cosmic web could fracture like cracked glass. And the most disturbing question remains unanswered. Was this the only black hole being consumed? Or just the first one we noticed? What if others are already disappearing in regions too distant for our telescopes to observe? What if this is a pattern, not an anomaly? A cycle, a harvest, something ancient, something patient, something hungry. And now that we've detected it, what if it has detected us?